But first, what a clown show today. No wonder Australians are getting poorer and fast. Today was a disaster for Anthony Albanese. It showed the Prime Minister is clueless about our economy. There was a crash car interview this morning, followed by the release of figures showing that his plan to cut immigration has actually given us, get this, more immigrants, another 500,000 over the year. Albanese promised us fewer, gave us more. And then, plot twist, he promised this afternoon to spend billions to fix the disaster. It was a circus, as you're going to see. And why aren't you surprised? Because this, for instance, is how Albanese started today on the friendly ABC, but the interviewer still felt that she should correct one of his howlers. She was wondering why the US last night cut its interest rates by 0.5% when our Reserve Bank won't cut ours this side of Christmas.
Well, in the US, they're cutting rates, Prime Minister.
Because the economy is so slow. That's why they're cutting rates, Patricia. And inflation peaked much
their
higher.
economic growth is higher than ours.
Inflation peaked higher in the United States and interest rates peaked higher in the United States than they did here. They're cutting off a higher rate.
Now, that interview of Patricia Carvelis, she was right now, but he's dead wrong. America is growing twice as fast as we are. Makes you ask, does Albanese understand basic economics?
The fact that he can't even answer basic questions, as we saw in the Patricia Carvelis story, this interview this morning, demonstrates that the Prime Minister is just not up to it.
But there's something else there that Albanese said to sort of excuse the fact that the economy is poleaxed and Australians are getting much poorer per person under his government, mostly through high inflation. Oh, said Albanese in that grab you just heard, America's inflation, that was in fact much worse before. He said it again at a press conference. Other countries used to be worse.
Well, we know that global inflation is something that we've been dealing with. We saw economies like the United Kingdom, Japan and New Zealand go into recession. We saw double-digit inflation in places like the United Kingdom. But what we are doing is putting that downward pressure on inflation.
In fact, it's true. The inflation in the US and in Britain used to be worse than ours, but now it's much better than Australia's, partly because of their higher interest rates. Higher, but coming down because they're breaking the inflation dragon. Unlike ours, because our interest rates are still stuck because our inflation rate is still so high. And it's that inflation that's making everyone poorer. And what's causing it? Well, one reason is that, why our house prices, for instance, is so unaffordable for most young Australians and why our rents in capital cities have gone absolutely crazy, punishing the poor and the young especially. That reason is, of course, the government just can't stop spending. But the other reason is this massive number of migrants that the government has let in, about 1 million so far, all of them needing houses and flats and the things to put in them, just when we're actually not building anywhere near enough houses. And that's, of course, helping to drive up prices. Now, last December, Albanese promised finally to do something about this torrent of people coming in, and fast.
Treasury forecasts show that migration is expected to decline substantially over the coming financial year. The new migration strategy we'll announce this week will bring migration back to sustainable levels.
And we had a minister today, Murray Watt, say, and we're noticing it already, they're working. Are we?
It's just not heading down. Why does the government say this?
That was Peter Dutton. He is right. He is absolutely right. In fact, the latest figures released today, albeit to the end of March, as I showed you earlier, shows, in fact, a big jump in immigrants in the first 3 months of this year. Now, I assume that, that includes many new students coming in for the year. But add them all up over the year, and you've got more than 500,000 immigrants coming in. 500,000, which is even more than the year before. So, that's not fewer immigrants, as Albanese promised, but even more, and all still wanting houses and apartments. But never fear, Albanese is here, saying today he's got a multi-billion-dollar plan to fix the disaster he's actually helped to create. And this is multi-billions of your dollars, by the way. Here was the Prime Minister this afternoon promising to help now build the houses we're screaming for.
My government is committed to doing more for Australians on housing. That's why we have a $32 billion Homes for Australia plan.
That's $32 billion when you could have just turned off the immigration fire hose. So, is anyone still wondering why we're getting poorer?